Eli Manning here. Welcome to a news edition of the Garden Report. Good news here for the Celtics, I'd say. Filling their final two-way spot on the roster with Neemias Queta, who comes over from the Sacramento Kings. They just waived him earlier this week after signing JaVale McGee, who's going to compete alongside Alex Len for minutes out there in Sacramento as a veteran presence behind Domantas Sabonis. The Kings had spent the last couple of years developing Queta, who is a native of Lisbon, Portugal, 24 years old, 7 feet, about 250 pounds, a big body, great frame on him for that height, compared to a lot of 7-footers you see who are on the skinnier side. Played college basketball at Utah State, 39th overall pick in the draft in 2021 to the Kings. And they, again, had spent some resources in development trying to round out his game. He's not a shooter, as most of the other bigs here are on the Celtics roster. More of a roller, solid finisher at the rim. He's floated around the low to high 50% field goal percentage, ticked above 60% in certain summer league games. He's played a few summer leagues now with Sacramento. I recognize him because he was one of the bigger guys out there, dominating in the paint as recently as this summer with Sacramento. I think he averaged about 8.5 rebounds, block and a half per game in this most recent summer league stint with the Kings there. And spent most of last year, of course, with the Stockton Kings, their G League team. Played 29 games, 17 points a game. Again, about 8.5 rebounds a game. Couple assists. He's got a nice face-up game that I'm sure intrigued the Celtics at his size. Shot 68% from the field during that G League run with Stockton last year. The total numbers on that finishing 198 for 289. So he was putting pretty much everything he put up in the basket last year in. So he'll play mostly in Maine, I'm sure, and it's no surprise the Celtics wanted a rim-running center for that Maine team with J.D. Davis and Jay Scrubb and the rest on those two-way deals. They want some structure. They want some support for those developing guards up there. And having a center who can screen and roll is an important part of that, as they had last year with Mfiondu Kabengele. But he'll also be that depth center for the Celtics in case injury strikes here. I do think there's probably some level of trust in him doing that, or at least giving him opportunities to in the preseason to show he can do that. Of course, you can move on from these two-way guys fairly easily if it doesn't work out. And having a third one in general just allows you to take that extra flyer on a guy. But given that Queta accepted this deal, a fairly low-paying salary for a guy of his stature, as well as limited opportunity here, you would think maybe there was some thought that he'll be able to earn a little something here, because Luke Cornett's the only center behind Porzingis, Robb, and Al, and he's on a non-guaranteed deal. So there is a lane here, especially with Grant Williams gone now as that pseudo extra big, for him to maybe steal a few minutes here or there on an off night, at least get an opportunity to try to do so on a winning team. I love this guy. I really do. Enjoyed watching him in Vegas. I think he has a little bit of potential with that face-up game. Can block shots in the drop, though. He played up to the touch a lot. He's slower. Doesn't move well on the perimeter, but luckily the Celtics, in his case, are playing a system that's going to drop the big more often than not, and having him close to the rim defensively at 7 feet makes a lot of sense. I like this signing a lot. Jay Scrubb, don't know how much he's going to play. J.D. Davison probably isn't going to play much, if at all, this year. This guy has a narrow chance, given the health concerns across the front court, to maybe steal a minute or two this year. And we, of course, are brought to you by HelloFresh. Great offer this September. Go to HelloFresh.com/CLNS50. Use the code CLNS50 for 50% off, plus 15% off the next 2 months when you head over there. Ingredients prepackaged to your door with laid out instructions, tons of options, 40+ options here for you, as well as snacks, breakfasts, other options, all under 15 minutes and much cheaper than the grocery store and going out to eat. That's the big one here. HelloFresh.com/CLNS50. And FanDuel, FanDuel.com/Boston. Last chance here, Sunday. Place your bets, and it's the last chance to get $100 off NFL Sunday ticket when you bet $5 by going to FanDuel.com/Boston. You also get $200 in bonus bets when you head over there. Bet the lines for Sunday, bet futures with the NFL. It's a great time to do it, and futures are available for the NBA now as well, if that's what you prefer. Support us, FanDuel.com/Boston and show some love to our official sports wagering partner. Make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook here. So FanDuel.com/Boston. Head over there. Of course, 21 plus present in mass. $10 deposit required when you head over there. And AG1. Love AG1. Go to drinkag1.com/gar and get your year's supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with their 75 vitamins, minerals, adaptogens, probiotics, and more in your water each day. Celtics, up to 19 players out of a maximum 21 here. Taylor Funk, DJ Stored, who had been in play for that third two-way spot. Have to think those guys are on to Maine once training camp ends. Of course, the 15th spot on the roster remains open for someone to earn that final spot. And you are limited in the amount of two-way pro minutes you can use to fill that final spot in the roster. So the Celtics probably will have to fill that eventually if they want to keep 3 two-way guys on the roster. But for now, this is enough. We'll see what happens with Blake. We'll see what happens with some of the other veteran free agents rumored for that last spot. But for now, Neemias Queta coming over from Sacramento, an intriguing 24-year-old 7-footer to fill that final two-way spot. I'm Bobby Mann. This has been a news edition of the Garden Report.